Hi everyone, welcome back to the last and final installment of our Elevate webinar series. We're excited to bring back the top performing webinars and sessions that were at the Elevate conference there in San Diego in October. They were incredibly well received, so we decided that we had to let everyone benefit from them. Throughout the session, you can submit your questions for John and Mark at any time in the Q&A box, and we'll get to a Q&A at the end. And if you didn't know, we've announced our early bird tickets for Unite 2026, and that's the 6th and 7th of May in Edinburgh. So I will put a link to those tickets in the chat box when we get started. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll get started.
Great. Thanks, Cleta. Good morning, good afternoon, and potentially good evening for some of you. Very excited, as mentioned, to present this SmartSimple roadmap session again, similar to what we did. Mark and I presented at the Elevate session back in October. We've made some updates to it just to make it a little bit more current. But we're very excited to highlight the vision direction that we're headed with the solution, along with what's planned in the upcoming February release, which is just around the corner, and even highlighting some of the key items that we're targeting for the June release. And then Mark's going to walk through a number of the enhancements and also provide a demo of some of the recent enhancements that you will be seeing in the upcoming release. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. One just quick housekeeping item I want to make sure I mention. I know Cleta mentioned the Unite event. And information will be available here shortly, posted here within the webinar. But also we have our February 2026 upgrade webinars on the 4th and 5th of February. So just stay a few weeks out, just less than 3 weeks out from now. So the emails and announcements will be going out on Tuesday, the 20th, this next Tuesday. So keep a watch out for those. And then you can always also go to the events site on our website to get some additional information on all those opportunities. All right, so let's get started. So as mentioned, we'll just do a walk through some of the roadmap themes, highlight the recent updates, specifically the upcoming update with the February release, and highlight a few of the enhancements that we've already delivered October release, just to refresh some of the customers out there today that either haven't upgraded or haven't fully checked out all the enhancements there. And then we'll highlight the roadmap in terms of the February release and the June release and beyond, and have open Q&A at the end. As always, because we are talking about future enhancements, just to acknowledge, we are highlighting features that we are targeting. These don't represent commitments, so no purchasing decision should be made based on this, but we are making our best effort, and we are getting better at delivering consistently with the enhancements that we are highlighting in our roadmap today and going forward. So in terms of roadmap themes, these haven't really shifted a lot in the last roughly a year or so. These continue to be the big focus for us, and hopefully you agree, as you've seen these last few releases, the improvements that we've made in these areas, specifically with transparency and collaboration. We did launch the Idea Lab in June of this year, giving everybody the opportunity to post ideas, provide feedback, and vote up ideas. And as I mentioned, the key to that is for Mark and myself and the team to review these ideas on a weekly basis so that we are analyzing and prioritizing those. So you are getting feedback to understand where we see those. And I'm also excited to announce that we are posting, with the launch of the February release next month, the roadmap. So within the same Idea Lab site, you'll be able to see a high-level roadmap of what we're planning. We've got a number of items that we're currently working on and brainstorming that we'd love to get feedback from you on, and I'll mention more about that later in today's presentation. But you'll also see some of the high-level enhancements that we're targeting over these next several releases out until later next year. So pretty excited to provide that transparency and give you the opportunity to provide feedback and as always, our Mark and my virtual doors are open for discussion and feedback on those topics. We continue to have Connect events. I know we're launching one, I think next month in Toronto. More details will be available there shortly. And we are doing some customer interviews on a variety of different topics, which again, I'll dive into more detail later in the session. Innovation and AI continue to be a key area of focus for us. I know that seems to be a buzzword, and we've been talking about it for a while, but we've taken a step back with AI to really focus not just on the platform capabilities of AI, but focus on specific use cases that we can deliver. And one of the exciting demos that Mark's going to provide today is around the AI application analysis, which will be a limited beta capability in the February release, which is a great example of how we're targeting a specific use case for a specific purpose to empower our customers to reduce the amount of time and sort of filter out some of the noise and qualify applications to identify which ones are most important to focus on versus which ones may be missing information or may not score as high. The other key thing with AI is that we're building a framework, a self-contained framework. And one of the areas of feedback that we're getting is one of the hurdles with AI and reluctance is around the security and control of AI. And so with our self-contained model, we are ensuring a secure set of information to where your data is not going outside the environment. And that's a concern with a variety of different learning models that are out there today where they consume that information, for example, with ChatGPT or OpenAI, depending on the version that you're using, the information you enter could be leveraged for outside purposes. So we want to ensure anything that you're consuming within SmartSimple, within our framework, is not being used outside of your environment. And then the last two areas, again, are also very critical in that the user experience and reducing complexity, and they almost always go hand in hand. In that the power of SmartSimple is the platform, but with that power, it can sometimes add complexity. And in a lot of cases, customers may not necessarily need all that complexity, but we don't want to take that power away from customers that want it at the enterprise level. So we have been focusing on identifying some common use cases, areas of the solution where we can not only make the screens more current, more modern, but really focus on the user experience to make it more intuitive and easier so that customers can be self-sufficient. One of the great examples that we delivered in the October release was the automated reminders. Again, typically with customers having to create, reminders, they had to really understand the workflow. Even if it was a simple type of reminder, the power of the workflow can sometimes be overwhelming if you're not familiar with it. So we've created a much more streamlined, wizard-like interface to give you that ability to more easily create and manage and process those workflows. We're also focused on targeting a number of other key areas, including report builder and list view, eventually the form builder. There's a list of different areas that we know customers are commonly focused on where there's a big opportunity to improve the experience and make it more intuitive. And so again, I'm going to get into more detail on some workshops that we're planning in this quarter, that if anyone's interested, we can have that discussion. And then just lastly on the complexity, again, we're looking for driving that more intuitive solution. Ultimately, we're trying to deliver value to our customers much quicker implementations of the solution and features through more simplified configuration is really the ultimate goal here. So I'm not going to run through all these enhancements in detail that we've already delivered in October. I just really, in my engagement with customers, see that sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the enhancements. So I think it's warranted just to spend a few minutes highlighting what we delivered in the October release and sort of align to those themes around the user experience. I think that the big thing there is we've modernized the left and center panel. And one of the things you're going to see in the February release is we've done some polishing based on some feedback we received from customers initially on the updates that we made to continue to make that a better user experience. We really focused on the CRM aspect of the solution with the notes and the interaction capabilities. And the notes tagging is a very popular feature now where you can, basically tag an individual to a note, which will trigger an email or an in-app notification. So that can be very powerful. And the way that you can view interactions or activities, which are now called interactions, we've cleaned that up to make it much easier to create interactions. And we've created some pretty cool chart views so you can see almost like a swim lane timeline of your interactions based on an organization, or you can see it in a list view. So a couple different ways of seeing that. And just a couple other things on the complexity. I think the big thing there was the chart filtering that we saw a lot of customers highlighting the fact that when they were creating charts and they wanted to have different types of filters for the same chart, they actually had to create multiple charts for the same thing. And so from a creation or maintenance perspective, you can create a single chart now and define those different variables for filtering so you're not having to manage multiple charts. And then lastly, this is a continued theme across the releases, is the continuous improvement specifically with the platform and specifically with our performance and our architecture. So with our performance, we really focused on some of the key areas where customers can typically have a high volume of information, whether it be the individuals or organizations or applications. We've developed a smart query capability that I'll talk about a little bit more in the next release. But October was the initial phase so that we could sort of get over that initial hump to introduce this smart query feature that will be in the February release. And then the architecture side, again, we've invested a significant amount of time, mainly to separate the front and back end, which again, I know is sort of a very technical explanation. And some people may have heard of, iframes and how we use iframes. We're phasing the iframes out, and we made a big improvement by reducing the iframes in the October release. And we're going to continue to do that in the February release, and you'll see some improvements on that front. So in terms of the February release, before I hand it over to Mark to highlight some of these improvements, again, the user experience I mentioned, we've done some polishing on the left and center panel based on the feedback we received to customers just to make some improvements there. On the CRM side, when we introduced the recurring events, there was a little bit of a challenge there in that in the current release that you have, October release, if you create recurring events, say you create a monthly event over 2 years, so you've got 24 events in there. If you decide that you want to move the day or make a change to the frequency, whatever that change is, you had to go into those individual events to make the change. So much like you can do in Outlook where you create a recurring meeting event, you have that ability to make a change either, for all the current or the future events. And I know Mark's going to show that or walk through that in more detail. I talked about the AI piece in terms of the self-contained component and the application analysis, which again, Mark's going to drill into, so I'm not going to steal his thunder there. We also, from a complexity perspective, we're introducing the test to production T2P capability in shared environments. And we know in some cases, some customers that had chosen to go with dedicated environments simply because they wanted T2P, because at this point, up until the October release, with the October release, you had to be in a dedicated environment. And so now in the February release, if you're in a shared environment, you will have that ability to leverage T2P, which means you have the ability to introduce sandbox instances for testing purposes and change management purposes. And again, we can get into more detail on that as we go through today's session. We've introduced in-app notifications. So for any system outages, we've introduced an easier way for us to initiate and notify customers if there is anything, a downtime or delay or any issues. anything that we want to notify from a system perspective on that front. And then from a supportability perspective, we've introduced some additional data points for customers so that they understand not only what version they're on, which is available today, but they can see if they're on a hosted or a dedicated environment and managed or unmanaged. So that, again, a benefit for you if you're not aware, depending on the user and your role, or for our support side, it just makes it easier for us to have that information. And then lastly, continuous improvement. I mentioned the Idea Lab roadmap access. Again, excited to be able to share that and collaborate with customers on that front. And then, as I mentioned in the October release, the same with February, we continue to support the large data sets with the availability now of the Smart Search. There'll be some limitations for customers in terms of who will be able to initially leverage the Smart Search, but we'll get into that when we get to that feature. When Mark walks through it, we'll talk in more specifics there. And then we continue to chip away on the architecture, specifically with the removal of iframes and the separation of the front and back end, both for performance reasons, for maintenance reasons, and also for us to help automate and improve some of our back end testing that we're doing as we go from release to release. All right, with that, I'll move it over to Mark to talk more specifically about some of the features.
Fair enough. Right. Let me just share my screen here. Hello, everybody. We're having a good morning or afternoon, as the case may be. So what I'm showing you here is I'm going to start off by walking us through the AI analysis. So give you a bit of a sneak peek. We'll go more in depth, as John said, in the February upgrade. But I just want to give you kind of an overview of where this feature's at. As John mentioned, it's in beta, and we're going to do some focus testing on it. The first thing, let me back up a second here. The first thing is we've been hearing from a lot of our clients that these are somewhat unprecedented times, and that the volume of applications and what you're trying to achieve with the limited resources is very high. And so this is a tool that can really help you kind of make recommendations and kind of suggest areas where you might want to prioritize reviewing. So here I've got a list of a bunch of applications that I've submitted, and I have the AI analyze the content of those, and then it actually gave me a score here, and I've sorted my list view. So in theory, if I had 1,000 applications to go through, I might want to prioritize some of the ones that got a higher ranking than some of the ones that got a lower ranking. And so that's one of the major things that this new tool is going to allow you to do. So if I jump in to this application, I've set up this application, and I've put in some sort of sample questions here, like, what are you trying to achieve with your project? Are you are you involved in any legal disputes? Are you going to use your funds for lobbying and electioneering? These kind of questions, and I've made them all kind of longer, multi-line text fields to kind of give more information about it. So going through and reviewing these all might be a bit time intensive. So what we can do is I can set up a criteria for this type of application, and then we can have the AI do an analysis of it. So that's what I've done here. So I moved it to a specific status. The AI has done an analysis of it, and it gives me a summary here. It gives us a score and says, okay, these are the ones that we think align best to the criteria that you've defined. And it tells you, okay, what this is about. So a brief summary here. This one's about closing the digital divide for low-income families. If there's some items that the AI says, hey, you might want to pay attention to these, it'll flag them here. Underneath that, I'll talk about the strengths of the application as it interprets it. And down here, I'll give you some ideas of weaknesses this application might have. So, for example, they didn't list a charity registration number. They were very vague about how they're going to manage their financial details and ensure that things are well audited and have those due diligence processes in place. And so that might be something that when you do review this application, you might want to look at some of these areas, go back to the applicant and say, hey, you didn't confirm this. Can you give me more detail about this area here? Now, the way it works is that you define your own criterion, which is down here. So here's my list of all my criteria. And then when the AI will look at what you asked it to look at, it'll evaluate it, and then it gives you a summary and a score. So within that, so for example, I guess here's lobbying. They said, hey, they're not going to be using this money for lobbying or electioneering. Great. So it was very confident that that the answer and the summary that it gave were going to be good, so it ranked it as high. It gave it a 10 out of 10. These are scores are all out of 10, although you can adjust that weighting. And you can do the same thing. You can drill into these other ones. These are the criteria. I know it's a lot to digest. I'm going to show you the back end really quick too, but again, we're going to talk more about this and there's a question and answer. And if you sign up for the February upgrade, we can go more in depth in this and a lot of other features. So I just want to show you really quickly, if you'll bear with me, kind of the back end of how I set this up currently. So if I come into my UTA, I've got my application. This is where I've set up uh, my criteria set. So think of your criteria set as these are the things that we're getting the AI to run when you move your application to a status that you want the AI to analyze it. So I specify what kind of grants I want to run the AI analysis on, because I may have different criteria for medical research grants as opposed to uh, social good grants or domestic versus international. Whatever your criterias are, they may have different sets that you want to run for different types of programs. We pick where we want to run. So you make a status, and whenever you move that record into that status, the AI will run. It'll do its summary, it'll do its scoring, and then you can choose to uh, take whatever you wish from those summaries and those actions, whether it's being prioritizing what you want to look at first, or whether it's kind of hyping to highlight things where you may want to go back and get clarification on. And then down here, we pick what we want to send. So these are the fields that we're going to send. So you can choose, maybe you only want to send part of the application, maybe you want to send the whole application, but you have that kind of a choice. And as John mentioned before, we're not sending this out to anything external. All of this is going to be hosted within your infrastructure. So the models aren't going to use this. It doesn't go out. There's no outside use of this data. It's all within your system and within your infrastructure. So essentially, that's one of the new features that we're going into beta. We're going to have some focus groups and talk more about it. But if you do have some questions about it, it gives you a kind of a sneak peek, and we'll go more detail in February. The the next thing I wanted to talk about, John, do you want to, if there's anything you want to add, just jump in.
Y-
I'm going
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, the only thing that I would highlight, and again, this feature again is sort of purpose-built AI use case, right? So it's very, I think, relatable for customers. Um, and I've met with a number of customers, and one of the common themes that I'm hearing, especially in the U.S. in terms of some of the shifts in federal funding, is a number of our organizations, customers, are facing an increase in applications due to the shift in sort of the federal funding changes. And we're seeing that the our customers are really being sort of tested in terms of trying to handle more applications when they're not having more resources available to handle those applications. So this type of feature is one that helps sort of mitigate some of that challenge or pressure, and that when you're managing a large volume or processing a larger volume of applications, you can at least try to filter out some of the noise and identify which ones you want to review, or which ones are most qualified to help you make the decision. So it's not intended to make the decision, but help guide you towards making, identifying and making the best decision on where you can make the biggest impact on investing.
100%. Uh, so the next thing I wanted to show is the interactions, which John had referred to earlier. So I'm going to go to my profile. And what this really is I'm going to jump to this view first off. Is basically these are all my interactions between myself and maybe an applicant organization. Maybe it's around an application. So I might have multiple touch points with a specific client. Maybe I'm having meetings, phone calls, site visits, these kind of things. And so I can see these things within the system. I can track all these interactions or touch points I'm having. I can chart those. I can see what's coming up. I can set reminders and keep track of all that information. So again, this came out in the October release, but in this release, I'm just going to go to this meeting I just set up, which is a recurring meeting. So maybe I have a monthly meeting where I'm going to check in with this client about this application. Again, I can set up all these details in here, link it to the application itself, I can include documentation if there's something we discussed, or maybe there's things that need to be doing. I can put notes in here. I've got a really robust kind of set of information I can keep track of within the system about all my interactions with that client around their application or whatever you're working on at that time. Within this upgrade and the next one, we revamped the way that the recurrence works, and that if I want to set up this meeting, like I said, for once a month to follow up with them, I set up those reminders. I can now make changes to the event itself, and then I can choose, if I make a change on here, maybe I'm changing the goal of the meeting, or there's some other information, or maybe I want to extend this to next year. I can make changes and save them to this interaction, or I can save it to this and the ones in the future, or I can save it to all of them, or I can delete all of them, or I can update my schedule, etc. So again, we've done some revision there around the recurrence and kind of events that are in a series. So that's new with the interactions. Jump in if you have anything you wanted to add on that one, John. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to the next one, which is really
Go
about
ahead.
let's go ahead. Yeah, it's about kind of, I'm going to say it's about supportability and transparency. So um, if I come in, and I've spoken this before, if I come into under my user menu here under support, you're always able to see the version that your system was on. And this is important for if you're having upgrades or things like that. But what we've done is we've increased this as well to give you more information about your system, specifically the tenancy, which John talked about. Some clients are on a shared tenancy and some are on a dedicated tenancy, where on the dedicated tenancy, um, you used to be able to, was the only one where you could do the older T2P. As you mentioned before, we've got the newer project-based T2P that's come out, and that's going to be available on the shared tenancy now. Um, so again, you can see that here, which one you were on, but you can also see the release schedule. So for those of you who have come to our upgrade webinars before, I'll often talk about our key release and our global release. So for everyone who's on the key release, for example, they're going to get that next upgrade on February the 12th, which is always the second Thursday of the month. People on the global release will get it 2 weeks later, and your backup gets upgraded 2 weeks prior. So now, if you weren't sure, well, what release am I on, Mark? I don't know if I'm getting it on this date or this date. You can come in here and you can see exactly which one you're on. Now, this one says QA, but yours will say either key release, global release, or on demand. And on demand means that those are for the clients that are on dedicated, typically, that choose when that upgrade gets applied for them. So, and along with this kind of transparency and seeing a little more information, I just want to highlight one more thing, specifically about what we're calling insights. So this is another feature that's coming out. We'll talk about a little more on the upgrade. But and this is my test instance, so forgive me for not having a whole bunch of data here. But this is more of transparency for support and people like that. You can kind of see the internal processes of your system that are running. I can watch my email queue go down, for example, or my workflows, any other different processes in the back end. So we're giving you more visibility into seeing these things, even how many API calls you're making, if you're utilizing that, your users. So again, we've kind of made this new dashboard to get more insights into some of those back end processes, so you can see a little more transparency about around how your system is working in the back end. So those are a few of the things that I wanted to share as a kind of a sneak peek for our February release. But again, we have lots of time in the Q&A as well, if people have more questions related, and we'll go through the full upgrade, in a couple weeks there.
All right, so let me get back to my screen.
Over to you.
All right. And Mark, were there any, I know you demoed some of these, but are there any of these slides here that you wanted to
That's
cover?
okay. I think,
I think you covered them all. I think
yeah,
that maybe
except for,
this
oh,
one.
sorry, except for that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I missed that one. So yeah, so the
Yeah.
other thing, again, back with transparency, you were always able to see well, as of October, you were able to see the Idea Lab underneath the administrator icon there, the gear icon. Now we've gotten access to the roadmap there as well. So the things we're talking about today and rolling forward, you'll be able to see what's coming in the upgrades long before those upgrades come, and what we're working on high in advance. Yeah. So my
And
apologies for missing that
and
one.
no worries. We do have a couple questions. Maybe we could throw those out right now, Mark.
Sure.
One, Kara was asking about how can I add interactions to my profile?
Yeah, fair enough. The interactions, I'll share my screen again.
I think I have to stop sharing my
I
kind of.
think, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So you can add interactions to your profile. You can also add them to your organization, so you can see at the organization level all the interactions you're having with other people at organization level and at the user level. Uh, the way that this is done, and again, I'll just go into global settings here. User standard fields. So we have a standard field that's called. Let me just do a search here. Interactions. And it may be called activity list on your system as well, but you can change it to whatever you want to call it. So I'm in mind interactions. Again, it's a standard field. So if you didn't see what I did there, I went to global settings, users, standard fields, uh, and I just searched for interactions, which is right here. If you open that up and save it, you'll be able to see it, and you can permission it as to who you want to see it based on role, which I highly recommend. Now, I did everyone, but you probably want to only let internal people see this. You won't want to expose to everybody. And then I guess while I'm at it, if you go to the current upgrade that's there, the February one will be coming up next week, but currently the one that's there, if I go to interactions, so let me just jump in here. There is, let me find it. Stop. Sorry, my apologies. Give me one second here. Um, yeah. So there is a write up here about the interactions themselves, and it does I think it does highlight. Is this the one? Sorry, hit the wrong one there. But there is one in here. Let me find it again. One second here. Approved. There's interactions. Anyway, it is in here, and if not, just reach out. One second. I'm gonna try one more time. Interactions. No. Okay. Well, I'll find it for you. Give me one second then. I'll stop sharing. But there is oh, where is it now? I'm just gonna find it. There is one in here, and it does specify because there's a couple extra settings there. Oh, there it is. I found it. Sorry, my bad. Here it is. Let me share. There it is. Share my screen. So there it is. Revamped interaction tracking. So here again, it says if you go to organization, the standard fields. Um, it was called activity list, which you can rename to interactions. You want to specify the permissions there. And then we also got a couple notes here. If you don't see it, there's a couple of settings permission wise where someone may have hidden it. So again, it's all there. If you just search for interaction tracking uh, on our current upgrade, which is on wiki.smartsimple.com upgrades. It's there. Next week, when the new one comes out, there will be a new article, but you can still access the old articles. If you've never seen that before, if I come down here and hit previous upgrades, um, they'll give you a list of all the previous upgrades we've had, and then you can pick the old one from there. So, uh, sure that answers that.
Thanks. Let me actually, I know there's a few open questions and they're coming in here. We're going to have, I think, plenty of time. So we're going to hold off on addressing some of these other questions. I'm going to jump back to to our presentation, and then we'll do the remaining any open Q&A as we get to the end here. So let me just share my screen again. All right. Just make sure, Mark, you guys can see it. I'll
Mhm.
continue on. So, what's on the horizon? I know we've highlighted a lot of exciting features that are coming just, less than a month from now. So very excited about that. But, that no rest for the weary. We continue to focus on additional enhancements and the subsequent releases. And I wanted to give, the audience here, our customers, a little bit more perspective on how one of the ways that we're getting feedback from customers. And this chart on the right-hand side is not a definitive chart, but it contains some of the topics that we've either heard from customers or we on the product side feel we need to consider sooner than later. And the intent here is we've had at the Elevate event and some of the more recent Connect events, we've had these voting sessions. And what we do is we throw this, this chart up, and we have an initial discussion, and we make some adjustments. Maybe we add one or two items, and we might remove a few other items based on the audience and what they think is important. And then we do a voting session. And the voting session is we actually hand out money. It's not real money, so you're not going to put it in your pocket. You're going to put it in buckets to vote. And we give you $10, and everybody gets to vote, and they can put all $10 in one item, or they can split them out into 10 different enhancements. And it's a great way to get a sense from the audience as to what is really most impactful for you and your organization. And a lot of that feedback is impacting what we're identifying in the roadmap. And I'm going to show you the results here in a minute, but I just want to talk about what we're highlighting or targeting in the June release. You'll see, we're targeting, two of the top three items that are in the Idea Lab today. One of those is the ability to preview media images instead of having to download to preview them, which I know is a nuisance. And I know other applications, pretty standard to provide that. So we are happy, and I know you will be happy that you won't have to download a media file to preview it after the June release is the target. And then the other one, which is the number 3 idea currently on the Idea Lab, is global search. And again, to me, most of our customers have multiple UTAs, and they have information across those UTAs that may relate to one another. And I always equate it to a case of, Salesforce, which is a platform, and you can have multiple instances of Salesforce where their global search we're modeling to some degree after their global search, to where you can search on any text value keywords. And if you search on, Mark, for example, it will look for all of the, contacts that have Mark. It will look for all of the applications that reference Mark. It will look for all the organizations that have Mark. And it'll organize the search results in that manner. So depending on what you're looking for, maybe you're just looking to find Mark and you couldn't remember his last name. You can type in Mark, and across the UTAs, it will give you the list of contacts, and you can just say list contacts, for example. So I see that as a big value. We're continuing down the path with CRM, and that the next step here is Outlook integration. And specifically with the Outlook integration, we're focused on giving you the ability to, from within Outlook, we're going to be providing a plugin capability so that when you're in Outlook and you're on an email, and that individual is registered within your SmartSimple instance, that's sort of the key, is their emails in your system. You will be prompted to identify the application you want to assign it to, some additional information or notes. And from that point within Outlook, you can say create an interaction, and it is linked to the application and that user automatically without having to go into SmartSimple. And then you can go into SmartSimple to see that interaction. So that's sort of the next step. And this opens up a wide range of other possibilities with Outlook, but we wanted to start with the interactions as a starting point. The data sync feature is another feature, and this is, again, I think more technical or more from an architectural perspective. But the idea here is to enable customers with an option to leverage our APIs to extract data into other data sources. And, commonly it could be, another reporting tool like Power BI, or other reporting tools is probably the most common mechanism. And we have a lot of customers that are aggregating data from multiple systems, not just SmartSimple, into another source. So this data sync feature will open up an API capability to where you can be very precise as to what you want to sync and when you want to sync it, because you don't have to do a complete data dump on a nightly basis, for example, which is what some customers do today. You'll have the ability to put in logic to say, only pull over I don't know, contacts that have been updated within the last 24 hours and only pull over the data for those contacts that have changed. So it's a very flexible, more efficient way for you to be able to sync and pass data from SmartSimple into other systems. And you can define that frequency for how often you want to perform that check and update. And then lastly, the application analysis, the intent, and we'll talk a little bit more on the next slide, is the intent is if, we get through these betas with the success that we're anticipating and no major roadblocks from now until the June release, we're intending to release the application analysis as GA for June, but again, barring any challenges. But we'll be having a beta to validate that. All right. This is what I was referring to, and the picture on the right-hand side was the SmartSimple team after at the end of the Elevate event, and we had our funny money there, just posing. And the right-hand side represents the results, and actually the results here are an aggregation of not only Elevate but a handful of other Connect events that we had, where most of the topics were fairly common. But you can see far and away the report builder was the hot topic. And so the method to our madness, you'll see on the next slide, is we've scheduled, and we're going to have some workshops to dive into the report builder and also the list view to understand from a customer perspective, what the challenges are and what opportunities you see, how we can improve the user experience so that we can work those specific items within those themes into our roadmap and the subsequent releases. So excited about how we're going to kick those off this quarter. So in terms of, where we are, again, we're really encouraging you to reach out and engage either through the Idea Lab, creating ideas and voting. Now with the with the roadmap posted, you'll have the ability to see that and provide feedback. We're going to have some events, the workshops and betas, which will more detail on the next slide to cover that. But we've really highlighted our strategic themes and where we're headed. And so we're always interested to get your feedback in terms of, are there other key themes that you feel at a higher level that we need to be considering? And even within those themes or at lower levels of detail, if you have specific feedback on certain capabilities and you feel that you want to go beyond just posting an idea on the Idea Lab, Mark and I are always willing to have those discussions, because sometimes it's easier to get on a call and maybe to show and walk through the use case. At least for me, that the visual is always beneficial. And then our commitment, hopefully you're seeing within this past year our transparency through the Idea Lab and through the roadmap and through these types of events. We're, I think, much more open and highlighting what we're planning to do. And not everything is set in stone with the future, but you can start to see a sense of at least those key items that we're focusing on, key themes and areas that we're focusing on, some of those enhancements. So, to me, the ask here is, for you, our customers, to be engaged in these various ways and don't hesitate to reach out to us if there are topics or areas that you want to discuss. Before we get into Q&A, and we'll have about 10 plus minutes to have Q&A, I wanted to highlight this big push that we're going to have starting this quarter, which is around two different events, workshops and betas. We're going to have two types of workshops around the report builder, which again was the number one item from our voting sessions. And everybody wants to be able to extract data, and I think there's some challenges we know with the complexity of the report builder that we want to address. And then everybody lives in list views. That's how you pull up and view data. And I think that's another big area where we can make a big impact by improving that user experience. And I always say, maybe we want to try to make it more like an Excel type of look and feel. and maybe that's a false expectation to say that, but I think there are like inline editing capabilities and sorting and searching capabilities and various other ways of presenting the data that we can make it easier for you in the list view. So those are the types of discussions I want to have, that Mark and I want to have. And the intent would be to have initially one-on-one sessions with customers. So for anybody that's interested, we're not going to be able to potentially have in-depth discussions with every customer, but I will guarantee that if anybody's interested, we'll have some engagement, whether it's an in-depth discussion or an initial call to get some initial feedback to leverage there. And then we also have the betas. So the betas obviously are going to be with the application analysis. Excuse me. They're going to be a little bit more involved because they're betas. There's going to be a little bit ownership for those individuals, those customers that want to be involved. We're going to go through a series of steps to do the testing and getting feedback. We're estimating, maybe 6 hours roughly of total time for you to participate in both testing and talking through these enhancements. And then the other area is the T2P. So for customers that are interested in testing the new T2P enhancement, we're still refining the specific criteria. We're interested, on customers, both the dedicated customers that may be interested in going to the shared environment because they don't necessarily need the infrastructure that they had to move on to because that's the only place that T2P was available. But then also any customers that are on shared environments, which is a larger percentage of our customers that may be interested in getting a sandbox to implement a more formal change management process for testing before going to production. So if you have any interest, my email address is here, or you can reach out to your SmartSimple representative. But over the next few weeks, we're going to identify those customers that we're going to target for these selected events. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. So I think we'll start with the questions that we have in Zoom here, and I'm going to start with the top one from Alvin around for clients with dedicated servers. Will we be able to specify the specific AI model and environment that will drive the AI analysis feature? For example, our own Azure OpenAI resource.
So I can take that one, John.
Yep.
So currently, the AI analysis that I demoed today is using our own scoring service. So it would go out to our scoring service currently. It wouldn't go out to a secondary model. So it would still be hosted within the infrastructure, but it's our scoring service that our labs team has created for doing that analysis currently. The second question.
Yeah, and just to
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say to emphasize that point too. We are prioritizing a self-contained model over a more hybrid model, but the intent is that we will become more agnostic as we go forward. But the demand that we're seeing from the larger percentage of our customers is they're looking for something more self-contained to address that security concern.
So the next question is from Victor, and he wanted to see some more of the criteria itself. So let me dig a little deeper into that. So here, what we have here is these were my sets of criteria. So I'll start over. I go into Submission Manager. I go into the configuration settings, and there'll be a link here for the application analysis. So this is where we configure it. So these are my sets of criteria. So I'd have one set of criteria for maybe each type of grant, if I need that kind of robustness. When I go in, here you see where we specify what types are going to apply to when and what fields get sent over to it. If I dig into the individual criteria themselves, this is where I would define the different types. So I've got scoring, flag, and yes and no. If I jump into here, what I've done is I just type out what I want to evaluate. I can also include documents for reference. I'll show you a different one here. So this is the flag type. So this isn't a scored one, so you have the option of having the scored ones and the yes, no are scored. We also have this flag type where I can say, hey, determine whether the organization is pending any litigation. So it's going to look through all those fields and see if it can determine that. And of course, then you'll get that confidence level and you'll get well, in this case, it'll tell you if it could find it or if it couldn't find it. It'll flag that piece of information and show it in your summary. The yes, no one, just to give you a little more insight into that. So again, I've done very simple questions here. You could, if you wanted to, set up more complex criteria as well. So if that's something you're interested in, um, for example, you could define exactly how you want to score it. I've done that here. You don't necessarily have to, but for example, I could say on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's got these things, give it a this. If it's got those things, give it a that, if you really wanted to. But certainly most of my questions here, I just kept it really simple with a single question, um, a very simple prompt. But again, you can really fine tune this the way you want. So, do let me know if you want to know more about that criteria. Hopefully that answers that question. Um, the next question here from Brian regarding interactions. They're asking uh, if there's a way to display the interaction on the associated application. So yes, there is. So I'll go here. So for example, on this one, I said, here's my interaction here on my profile. I've attached it to the submission manager in a specific application. There is a way to show this on that application as well, so you could come back to it, but it's a bit complicated. You have to use a report property. This is something where we would probably want to enhance the system to make it a little easier and have it show up right on that application in the left-hand navigation. But that isn't present right now. So right now, the only way to get it to show up would be using a report property, and it takes some extra config. But again, this is an area that I think, John, we can probably agree on that we're going to keep enhancing over time. I know next, in the June, we're looking at the Outlook integration for this, which will tie into this. So again, it's an area where we could probably keep, working on that. Um,
Most definitely.
okay, next one. You want to get it? I guess if we've reached out to John. His email was there earlier. I'm sure you guys can help us, or your account representative get added to the list, to the mailing list, if you want to see more webinars like this and like the upgrade webinars. And I guess, well, here I'm going to plug the upgrade webinars as well. So if you go to smartsimple.com and under resources, you can register here for the February upgrade to learn what's coming in more detail. Um,
Yeah, and
yes.
I would say too for Lee or anybody else, if you're not getting emails, please you can send that to me. Let me know. We are working through and reconciling some internal lists. Some lists are more technical, and some lists are more for the users. So potentially, you might not be getting notification, but if you send us your name and contact, we'll make sure that it's included going forward.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So were all the questions answered? Why don't we lead? Do we
Oh,
get
there was
Brian?
Sorry.
there was one more about the dates on the workshops, but John, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I assume it's pending.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Dates of the workshop. So the goal is to start scheduling these in Q1, which is where we are now. I would anticipate once we identify the list, and again, um, it, it's going to be a limited number of customers depending on how much interest we get back from everybody. But it will start next month. No dates. They'll be scheduled one-on-one. So I'll work with with each organization or contact to determine the most optimal time. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, confusions, feedback? Want to make sure we remind everybody again, we've got the roadmap sessions. You can go to the website as Mark highlighted to sign up for the one of the two upgrade webinars on the 4th or 5th. And then for the Unite event in Edinburgh, beautiful city. Anybody either near there or interested in traveling there, I would highly encourage you to go. It's a beautiful place, and not to mention we'll have a lot of great discussion on Smart Simple and where it's headed.
Great. Thank you so much, folks. Great shout there on if you're not getting the emails, please do sign up to the link that I just put in the chat there. So if you want to get more information about the upgrades, like John mentioned, they will be going out the 20th of this month. So you can sign up there as well if you haven't done so already. And Edinburgh is a great place to be in May. So please do have a look at the website over there as well. I know Mark showed the resource page as well. You can find the Unite event there as well to have a look at tickets. There is a preliminary agenda already on there. I know there's some breakouts happening with product there as well. So if you want to have a look at that, head over there. Appreciate it, John and Mark. Thanks so much for this webinar today, and I appreciate everyone who joined as well. Thank you so much for your questions.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Cheers.